Incredible moment, single mom's inspiring struggle exposed, CEO's surprising gesture revealed. Sarah stood by the school gate, tapping nervously at her phone while waiting for Emma and Jake to burst out of the colorful brick building. The weight of the day pressed heavily on her shoulders, bills loomed, and her mind whirled with the constant struggle of being both mother and provider. Just as she took a deep breath to push back the anxiety, an email notification chimed. Trembling fingers opened the message and her heart raced at the sight of an invitation for an interview at Electrotech, an unheard-of opportunity that felt like a dream too big for her reality. Yet, the euphoria was quickly shadowed by a sneaky apparition of self-doubt. Was she really qualified for a managerial role? A world of polished suits and briefcases awaited, a world she felt little connection to, as if standing on the outside of a glass building, trying to peer in. Her existential dread tightened like a vice. She wasn't just battling for herself anymore, she was fighting for her kids, Emma and Jake, who believed in her more than she believed in herself. As she pulled her children into a tight hug after school, Sarah's neighbor Mrs. Henderson, with her frail hands and warm, encouraging smile, popped her head over the fence. Once a rising star in the corporate world, she now had the wisdom that came with age and hindsight. "You've got something to offer, dear," she urged as Sarah shared the news. So began their evenings of preparation, rehearsing answers in the mirror, running through the company's values like an incantation. Each phrase stoked flickers of hope, igniting a determination deep within her, but with that determination came fear, the voice of the inner critic echoing relentlessly. What if they saw her as just a single mom? Just someone who never fit in? As the interview day dawned, her pulse quickened. The sleek facade of Electrotech loomed menacingly before her. Each glass door reflected a polished image of successful strangers. She felt fragile, out of place amidst the polished resumes. Would they see beneath her exterior the sleepless nights, the juggling acts she performed just to keep her family afloat? Yet, the coffee coursing through her system was fueled by moments of determination and anxiety, echoing the battle she had fought in her life. Thus as the questions flowed, so did her resolve. They spoke of problem-solving, collaboration, sharing her real-world experience, climbing obstacles. She could see their eyes flickering with interest. Maybe, just maybe, she could break free of the labels placed on her. Then the disruption hit like a thunderstorm. Mark Whitman, the CEO, walked in as the corporate chaos unraveled around them, rumors of scandal swirling like autumn leaves. His honesty, cloaked in vulnerability, told a story that echoed her own. Through his own battles, he had gained a seriousness for the imperfections of the human experience. They shared a glance, a fragile thread connecting them. Before Sarah could fully process this newfound connection, her phone buzzed again, an urgent message from Emma's school about a parent meeting addressing impending funding cuts. Should she chase her own aspirations or focus on protecting her children's educational future? Panic surged through her as thoughts collided in her mind. What if pursuing this job meant placing their financial security at risk? The weight of her choices pressed down hard, threatening to push her under, as the impending storm of decisions loomed ever closer. Desperation clawed at her throat as she declared internally, "I can't let them down." Each heartbeat felt louder than the last, the unsolved district funding dilemma hovering above her, suffocating her dreams. Would she continue into the tainted fray of ambition or rally for her children's future? The pause felt infinite, as the path ahead twisted into branches she could scarcely fathom. The echoes of the interview swirled in Sarah's mind as she stepped away from Electrotech's entrance. Her heart was still racing, but her thoughts had crystallized into something more focused. The intoxicating thrill of possibility battled against the grounding weight of her responsibilities as a mother. The choice lay before her, clear yet daunting. Why couldn't both paths coexist? Emma's voice flashed through her mind, her earnest little face filled with trust and belief, urging her to strive higher. But could she reconcile her ambitions with the pressing reality of Emma's education? Would sacrificing for her children mean sacrificing her own potential? As she walked toward the school's entrance for the meeting, a lump formed in her throat. The prospect of hearing about funding cuts gripped her. The thought of losing resources for Emma and Jake felt like a punch to the gut. They were not simply statistics in a budget report, they were her entire future, the pulse of her resolve. With every step, the chaos around her car's honking, children laughing contrasted with the tightness in her chest. Each sound felt intrusive, reminding her of the life she had yet to forge. At the meeting, parents filled the room like a sea of worried faces, each resonating with apprehension. Discussions drifted between gloomy forecasts and frantic pleas for unity, revealing the crumbling foundation that education had become in their community. Sarah listened, absorbing the consequences that would ripple through her children's lives. She judged, they had all come to the meeting for the same reason, love for their children. But as the opposition mounted, it stirred something deeper inside her, a defiance, a refuse to back down resolve. Quieter voices started to emerge as she sensed the collective frustration simmering below the surface. An idea formed, then sharpened. Why couldn't she spearhead a campaign? Not just for her children, but for all the children in the district who deserved better. An activism focused on action, paired with ambition, could intertwine rather than negate each other. The thought electrified her as she raised her hand to speak, her voice breaking through the high-pitched conversations. The room stilled, a focused beam of attention narrowed on her. "We can't let this fear paralyze us," she asserted, her heart swell with newfound courage and clarity. "What if we organized? We need to come together not just as parents, but as advocates for our kids' futures." For the first time, she didn't feel alone in this battle. She had known the challenges of being a single mom, but here in this moment, she unearthed a strength that was newly forged in the fires of determination. The nods and murmurs of encouragement around her ignited something in her spirit. In that instant, the fusion of her world as a professional and as a mother merged. After the meeting, as parents gathered to discuss the next steps, Sarah's mind raced with plans. She envisioned not just fundraisers or petitions, but real community involvement, a network of parental support and advocacy. She had skills she had almost forgotten as they lay dormant beneath layers of self-doubt. Networking, problem-solving, leading discussions, abilities honed during years of struggle. However, the looming question remained, would Electrotech still be waiting for her if she dove headfirst into this new venture? Would she be able to balance this ambition with her aspirations in corporate space? The tension between these two worlds felt like an unraveling knot, each tug promising to lead her down different paths. Then, late at night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed with an email. The subject line read, "Electrotech interview outcome." She hesitated, heart pounding in her ears, knowing this moment could pivot her entire life in a single click. What choice awaited her on the other side of that email? Sarah's finger hovered over the screen, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. What if this was the opportunity she had been waiting for, the key that could unlock a different life? Yet, what if she chose it and it drew her away from everything she had just vowed to fight for? The internal dichotomy paralyzed her for several seconds. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and finally pressed open. The words unfurled in front of her, "Congratulations, an offer for the position." A rush of adrenaline surged through her. Victory felt sweet, intoxicating. Yet alongside the exhilaration, prickles of doubt snaked up her spine. Was it strange to feel this elation while simultaneously grappling with the reality of her children's future? A profound sense of responsibility flooded in. She was no longer just Sarah the prospective employee, she was Sarah the mother, fiercely protective of her children. As she closed the email, the exhilaration began to fade, replaced by a somber realization that if she accepted the job, she would have to abandon the campaign that had ignited a new purpose within her. The potential for new financial stability would come at a cost, one that felt increasingly high as the memory of that meeting blurred into focus. The echoes of her own voice resonated, "We need to come together not just as parents, but as advocates for our kids' futures." It was a rallying cry she had summoned from somewhere deep within, and it held weight now, a tether between her ambitions and her responsibilities. In that moment of uncertainty, something else struck her. She possessed the ability to embody both roles, the corporate professional and the engaged advocate. Cross-pollinating her responsibilities could create a blend of success. It could empower her voice both in the office and in the community. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Could she navigate this thin line? Sleep proved elusive as she tossed and turned, her mind racing with possibilities. She envisioned herself in dual roles, leading high-stakes meetings at Electrotech, yet remaining the fierce advocate who would battle for educational funding and reform. The exhilaration of success was tantalizing, but the fear of failure gnawed at her. What if she faltered in either role? What if the campaign crumbled without her, or worse, what if she fell short in the corporate world? Rising before dawn, Sarah made a decision. She would respond to the offer, but her acceptance would come with conditions. Instead of choosing one path over the other, she would negotiate flexibility, perhaps a part-time arrangement or a position that would allow her to remain committed to her community cause. She would assert her needs unapologetically. Determined, she crafted her email response carefully, articulating her enthusiasm and backing it with her vision. As her fingers clicked the send button, an unfamiliar sense of power surged within her. In this moment, Sarah realized she was no longer simply reacting to life's demands, she was actively shaping her destiny. She had tapped into a strength she didn't know existed. Now, all that remained was to face the inevitable confrontation with both her new employer and the parents who depended on her as a leader in the educational fight. As she prepared for what lay ahead, a single thought lingered: would they accept her new vision? The moment for truth felt imminent, and Sarah steeled herself for what could unravel both professionally and personally. Confrontation beckoned, and the duality of Sarah's life was about to clash head-on. What awaited her in that pivotal exchange could redefine everything she had fought for. The sun had barely broken the horizon when Sarah pulled into the parking lot of Electrotech. Today felt different, the air hummed with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She clutched the steering wheel, her heart racing in sync with the drum of her thoughts. This was not merely her first day, the stakes were higher than ever. She was both the newcomer skyrocketing into corporate ambition and the advocate determined to bring systemic change to her children's educational landscape. As she climbed the stairs to the building, images of a frazzled evening spent helping her children with homework flashed through her mind. She wrestled with the dichotomy of these lives. Could the mother fighting for her children's rights coexist with the assertive leader she needed to be in the boardroom? Entering the glass doors, she was enveloped by the sounds of bustling voices and the clatter of keyboards. The sleek office space, a world apart from late-night kitchen debates with other parents, filled her with adrenaline. But beneath the surface, uncertainty churned, her commitment to her community flickered like a candle in a windstorm. In the conference room, anticipation crackled among her new team, the faces eager for her insights. Sarah squared her shoulders and concentrated on the meeting agenda, knowing this was her moment to bridge the gap between the two passions that made her whole. As introductions went around, she felt the weight of eyes on her. A senior executive leaned in. "We're excited to have you, Sarah. Your background in advocacy is an asset we didn't realize we needed." The compliment was a small reprieve, but it also deepened the pressure. How long before they discovered that her heart was divided? Steeling herself, she presented her ideas. Insights flowed with vigor. She spoke passionately about strategies that could create greater financial accessibility for fellow parents while emphasizing corporate responsibility toward community engagement. Yet, as the room absorbed her words, so did the apprehension of the confrontation that lay ahead. She couldn't ignore the reality. By pursuing this opportunity, she risked alienating those in her educational campaign who had rallied behind her as their leader. After the meeting, the CEO, Tom Eldridge, invited her into his office. His presence was intimidating yet approachable, an aura of confidence radiated around him. As they began to discuss her proposed initiatives, Sarah caught a glimmer of unexpected understanding in his eyes. The conversation shifted from company metrics to community impact. "You know," he said slowly, "companies are often seen as the enemy in social discussions. But I believe that if we can harness some of your advocacy strengths, we can change that perception." The narrative lingered, opening a door she hadn't expected to find. Could there be a way for her to influence policy while navigating corporate corridors? Just as Sarah was about to embrace this possibility, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a group text from the parents she had worked so closely with. They were spiraling into discontent over funding issues she hadn't anticipated, questioning her commitment to the cause. An uncomfortable knot twisted in her stomach. The timing felt almost cruel. This was the confrontation she had feared, her two worlds colliding relentlessly. She paused, torn between responding to the frantic messages demanding her leadership and seizing the rare opportunity unfolding in front of her. Would Tom back her ambitious social initiatives, or would he see her as a liability for wanting to marry personal causes with corporate responsibility? The weight of her decision began to feel ever more profound. She could settle into the safety of a corporate role or rise to meet the challenge of creating real change. The question lingered like smoke: was she ready to confront the backlash from her peers for straddling both identities? Fingers trembling over her phone, Sarah took a moment to breathe. Her response would determine whether she risked it all or played it safe. The choice lay before her, and the contours of her future shifted as she stood at this precipice. Which path would she choose, and how would it reshape the lives that mattered most to her? The air grew thick with tension as Sarah stared at her phone, grappling with the urgent messages flashing across the screen. Each notification punctuated her thoughts, a relentless reminder of the expectations pressing down from those relying on her. She could sense Tom's curious gaze lingering on her, waiting, perhaps questioning her commitment. This was not just her workplace debut. It felt like a crossroad, where two powerful forces within her would either clash or harmonize. Swallowing hard, Sarah felt the tug of her responsibilities. The parents had trusted her to be their voice, yet here she was in a realm where she could wield influence and create brick-and-mortar results. Should she reply to their distress? Or was this moment with Tom the key to advancing not just her career, but her advocacy as well? "Excuse me for a moment," she managed to utter, her voice steadier than she felt. As she stepped out of the office, the noise of the bustling floor faded into a dull hum behind her. She found a quiet corner, forcing herself to focus. The messages echoed in her mind: "We need you, Sarah. What is your plan? Will you abandon us?" Her heart ached with the betrayal she imagined they felt. Yet, on the brink of a genuine opportunity, she couldn't afford to retreat. Perhaps she could lay the groundwork for sustainable change, one that amplified her community's concerns within the corporate structure. With deliberate effort, she steadied her breathing. Her thoughts took shape as she considered Tom's earlier words. What if she proposed an initiative that integrated her advocacy into Electrotech's corporate ethos, positioning both the company and her community for mutual growth? A project that didn't merely skim the surface of social responsibility but entrenched the organization in real change. Resolutely, she returned to Tom's office, reinvigorated by a newfound clarity. "I think we need to address how corporate initiatives can align more closely with community needs," she began, her pulse quickening as she laid out her thoughts. "What if we could design a program that links our financial resources directly to education funding? It might seem ambitious, but it's a way to not only transform perceptions about corporations but create lasting change." To her relief, Tom nodded thoughtfully, a hint of enthusiasm breaking through his composed demeanor. "That's a fascinating angle, Sarah. I think I see where you're going with this. If we can create a solid framework, it could hit all the right notes: community integration, employee engagement, and boosted public image." The synergy formed in that exchange ignited something within her. The path forward didn't have to be an either-or scenario. If she played her cards right, Sarah could be both the leader her children's advocacy needed and the corporate changemaker she aspired to be. Just then, she felt a curious mix of exhilaration and dread. A realization washed over her. This opportunity came with great risk. What if the parents interpreted her initiative as a betrayal? Would they view her as someone abandoning their struggle for corporate success? It was a thin line she walked, and the reality of her dual existence pressed onto her shoulders with an unexpected heaviness. Yet, she grasped a flicker of determination. She would not shy away from this intersection of her identities. The company could become a powerful ally for her campaign, but it required courage to advocate for that vision amid the inevitable pushback she might encounter. As they continued to flesh out the potential project, Sarah felt the clock tick. She wasn't merely devising a plan, she was redefining her very narrative, stitching together two parts of her life that once felt irreconcilable. Then, as if sensing the weight of her thoughts, Tom leaned back in his chair, looking directly at her. "We can't do this without your authentic voice, Sarah. Your commitment to the cause is essential. Are you ready to put it all on the line? Chills ran down her spine. The stakes were indeed rising. Sarah nodded slowly, a promise to herself, solidifying in her mind. She would step into this space fully, but first, she needed to face her peers from the past. Resolutely, she opened her messaging app, fingers poised. The moment of truth awaited her, a choice that would not only define her future at Electra Tech, but also the trust her community had placed in her. Taking a breath, she pressed send, ready to embrace whatever came next. Would her commitment be perceived as a betrayal, or could she forge a new path that reconciled her two worlds? The digital chime of her phone echoed in the silence that had enveloped Sarah as she exited Tom's office. It was a stark reminder of the crossroads she'd just crossed. Messages swirled, each one drawing her back to the weight of her responsibilities. Still, the conversation with Tom lingered in her mind, an electrifying promise that perhaps she could do more than just advocate. She could act. Sarah returned to her desk, thoughts racing. The approval of her project could revolutionize perceptions not just within Electra Tech, but also in the lives of those she aimed to uplift. Her heart swelled with the enormity of it all. Yet, a gnawing uncertainty remained. How would she present her plan to the parents? What if they viewed her collaboration with a corporation as a betrayal, an abandonment of their shared struggle? Settling into her chair, she took a moment to visualize her next steps. There was more than just a corporate initiative on the horizon. This was a chance to reshape narratives, to break down the walls that divided her two worlds. She needed to articulate her vision clearly, not just to Tom and her colleagues, but also to those who had placed their trust in her. As she navigated back to her messaging app, Sarah's resolve crystallized. She decided to frame her approach not as a mere corporate sponsorship, but as a partnership designed to bring about genuine change. Others had previously emphasized the limitations of her world, but her recent experiences taught her that she could expand those boundaries. She was ready to suggest ideas that harmonized both realms seamlessly. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, stirring her coffee absently while feeling her heart drum in anticipation. With each keystroke on her laptop, she crafted a proposal that blended Electra Tech's resources with educational initiatives that mattered to the community. It wasn't just strategy, it was advocacy infused with her values, her identity, and her dreams for the children who relied on her. Yet something deeper churned within, an unsettling recollection of her earlier life. She sought the approval of those who didn't understand her ambitions. They cherished a different kind of loyalty, one that valued steadfastness over stepping into the unknown. The memory flickered like a firefly, illuminating her fear. The old Sarah had limited herself, seeking acceptance through sacrifice. That Sarah had to fade. She yearned to become a pioneer, even at the cost of discord. As dawn broke, she prepared for her meeting at Electra Tech, her heart throbbing with both anxiety and excitement. It was an odd mix, one that hinted at a significant turning point. When she arrived, Tom greeted her with an encouraging smile. She felt fortified as they settled tensions and strategized the forthcoming presentation to the importance of clear messaging and robust planning. Each detail seemed to matter more than before. This wasn't merely a project, it was a declaration of identity intertwined with accountability and hope. She sensed that today, her words would reflect the full spectrum of her journey. There could be no dilution of purpose. As they wrapped up their preparations, Sarah found herself facing a mirror of future success and acceptance against isolation and backlash. The undeniable truth settled in. Stepping forward meant opening herself up to criticism from both the corporate world and her community. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from one of the parents she had always prioritized. "What's your plan, Sarah? We haven't heard from you lately." Her pulse quickened again, a visceral realization washing over her. Was she prepared to unveil her ambitions? Would they see her as a traitor for engaging with a corporation, or could she articulate her vision well enough to garner their support? Standing on the edge of vulnerability and courage, she inhaled deeply. The moment of truth awaited. Would she step into her new identity with authenticity, or retreat into the shadows of doubt? With her heart racing, Sarah hit reply, ready to steer the conversation toward the change she believed was possible. The lines were drawn clearly now, but the choice was hers to hold fast to her past or leap boldly into her future. The hum of the office was louder than usual the next day, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah sat at her desk, her pulse steadying, but her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had drafted her plan meticulously, but sharing it was an entirely different challenge. Confronting her fears head-on felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep could send her plummeting into uncertainty. Tom entered the room, his demeanor radiating confidence. "Ready for the meeting?" he asked, arching an eyebrow. His faith in her ignited a spark of determination within Sarah, but self-doubt lingered at the periphery. "I think so," she responded, forcing steadiness into her voice. The meeting was more than a presentation, it was a measure of how far she had come and how willing she was to embrace this new identity. As other team members filed in, she focused on her breathing, reminding herself of her intentions. This wasn't merely about navigating a corporate strategy, it was about elevating her community's voice. Just as she began to gather her thoughts, an ominous flicker of vulnerability struck. What if she faltered in her delivery? What if they didn't understand her urgency? The conference room was resplendent, polished surfaces reflecting the bright overhead lights. Sarah glanced at the assembled team, each face unfamiliar, yet tied to the fate of her proposal. When she stood to present, a momentary whisper of doubt gripped her. But the image of the children she aimed to support surged forth, invigorating her with newfound strength. Tom kicked off the meeting, introducing her with a glowing endorsement that filled her with a blend of pride and apprehension. As Sarah began to outline her vision, her words flowed fiercely, fueled by her conviction. She painted a picture of collaboration, a bridge built from Electrotech's vast resources connecting to the aspirations of her community. However, with each enthusiastic nod from her colleagues, she couldn't shake the unsettling echo of her past. Had she strayed too far from her roots? Could she truly transform their perceptions without inviting backlash? Just as she reached her concluding argument, she caught the eyes of a few skeptics, their expressions clouded with doubt. "Sarah, what makes you think the parents will trust us after everything that has happened?" A voice broke in, striking like ice through her warmth. It was a challenge, a reminder of her delicate balance. "Because I will be upfront with them," she countered, steeling herself. "This isn't merely a partnership but a commitment to them. They deserve transparency and to understand how we can collectively foster change." The silence that followed felt oppressive. Yet, rather than retreat into panic, something within her clicked. This was not merely about defending her proposal, it was about declaring her identity one that demanded authenticity. As the discussion morphed into a barrage of questions and critiques, she navigated through them with clarity. The meeting bore witness to her evolution. She was no longer just a participant in the room, but a leader capable of indelible impact. Each challenge sharpened her resolve, molding her to speak not just from intellect, but from a place of solidarity. When the meeting concluded, a palpable tension lingered in the room. Tom had spoken of the need for buy-in, but his eyes sparkled with pride at her ability to navigate conflict so gracefully. In her heart, Sarah knew there would be uphill battles ahead, especially with the parents, but this pivotal moment served as a crucible, one that would only strengthen her will. As she stepped out of the room, buoyed by a sense of accomplishment, her phone buzzed again. It was another message from one of the parents. "You spoke well today, Sarah. But can we trust that this isn't just another corporate move?" In that instant, Sarah recognized the weight of expectation not only on her shoulders but within her very being. The path forward demanded clarity and courage, and she was ready to confront the ghosts of her past head-on. Now, she stood at the threshold of a crucial decision. Would she extend her arm to reassure them of her intentions, or would she cling to her fears of rejection? The choice loomed large, one that could define not just her relationship with her community, but her identity moving forward. Sarah leaned against the wall of the office, her heart still racing from the intensity of the meeting. Despite the positive feedback, the weight of the parent's message weighed heavily on her. Trust was an elusive commodity, particularly in her world, where skepticism seemed to thrive like weeds in a garden. Would they believe in her intentions? Or would they see her as just another corporate suit, more interested in profit than genuine change? She returned to her desk, her mind racing as she pulled up the message again. The question churned in her stomach: did she really possess the resolve to connect with the very people she once shared a life with? Determined to confront the situation head-on, Sarah picked up the phone. A call was a far better way to create intimacy than emails or texts. She dialed the number, praying for the right words to flow from her mouth. After a few rings, the mother's voice crackled through the line, sounding weary yet open. "Hello. Hi, it's Sarah," she began, her hand clenching the desk as she stood taller. "I wanted to personally talk about my proposal today." Silence followed, so thick it nearly shattered her composure. "I appreciated what you said in the meeting, but words are just words. Actions speak louder, you know." "Absolutely. That's why I want to assure you that I'm committed to this journey. I want to meet with you and others to discuss your fears and hopefully clarify what we can do together." A mix of skepticism and curiosity colored the mother's response. "You could just be saying that to check a box, you know." "Maybe," Sarah replied, her tone steady. "But I'm not asking for your trust blindly. I'm willing to lay out our plans, expectations, and show up consistently. I want your voice in this." For several moments, the silence continued, and Sarah could almost feel the gears turning in the mother's mind. "Okay," the mother finally said, her voice softening. "But you need to understand our community. We've been let down before." "I do understand," Sarah admitted, her heart settling toward conviction. "And I will take the time to learn about your needs, to hear your concerns. We can't make progress without partnership." When the call ended, she felt a rush of relief and empowerment, but there was little time to bask in it. Her phone vibrated again, this time with an invitation to a community gathering where parents shared grievances and hopes. Another internal battle raged around this prospect: would they really welcome her there? She could either step into the circle and expose herself to scrutiny or hide behind the safety of her corporate facade. The resignation to embrace the challenge emerged. She would go. Too often in her life, she had retreated to the shadows. Exposing herself as vulnerable was part of the journey toward authentic leadership. This was a test of courage and character, the very elements that would define her growth. Standing by her desk, her decision solidified. She would not only attend but actively participate, diving into dialogues that might demand her to confront uncomfortable truths about her past affiliations. That evening, she rifled through her closet, pulling out clothes that felt real rather than polished. They were reminders of her roots, a younger Sarah who had once fiercely stood for those she loved, who had fought for them in any way she could manage. As she prepared, a familiar anxiety arose, whispering doubts about how her community would perceive her. Yet, instead of retreating, she drew strength from those whispers, reshaping them into fuel for her journey. She was not simply going to witness their struggles, she would step into the fray. When she finally arrived at the gathering, the din of voices struck her. She stood at the door for a moment, absorbing the atmosphere, filled with tension and hope. But then, just as she took a step forward, she noticed a familiar face among the crowd, a disapproving glare from someone she wished had remained in her past. In that instant, Sarah realized she was facing more than just the community, she was confronting her own history. "Here we go," she whispered, ready to engage in a confrontation that would define both her present and future. Would she clash with her past, or find a way to weave it into her new narrative? Only time would unfold the truth. The room felt pressed against her like a vice as Sarah maneuvered through the gathered crowd, uncertainty curling around her like smoke. Familiar voices echoed, lively and charged with emotion, a stark contrast to the resignation she had expected. Even though she felt anchored by her resolve, it was that same resolve that tightened her throat, preparing her for whatever reception awaited. As conversations swirled around her, she caught the eye of a former mentor turned skeptic, Mark. His expression was uncompromising, as if he held all the answers to the questions she feared to ask. Did she really belong here? Could she reconcile her past choices with her future ambitions? With each passing moment, Sarah hated the way her heart raced, betraying the calm facade she wished to present. Still, it was too late to retreat now. She approached a small gathering, and as she stepped into the circle, she felt a mixture of curiosity and criticism directed her way. "Sarah," a voice rang out, grainy with doubt but warm with familiarity. It was Lisa, a single mother from the community whose struggles had once mirrored Sarah's own. Their eyes locked, and for the briefest moment, Sarah glimpsed fear and hope reflected back at her. "Why are you really here?" Lisa's inquiry sliced through the air, demanding sincerity. In that moment, Sarah saw herself not as a corporate executive, but as someone who once stood beside these very mothers. "I want to listen," Sarah replied, grounding herself in truth. "I need to understand what your community needs and how I can help fulfill those needs." The challenge was implicit in her words, a call for transparency she knew she had to uphold. Their eyes held for a moment longer before Lisa slowly nodded, evidently somewhat reassured. Yet others remained skeptical, their crossed arms like shields guarding against disillusionment. Sarah could see doubt floating among them, hovering just like the kiss of winter in the air. "Talk is cheap, Sarah," another voice chimed in, dripping with disdain. "We've seen plenty of people come and go. What makes you different?" The accusation struck, but instead of shrinking, a fire ignited within her. "You're right. I'm asking for your scrutiny. I've made mistakes, and that's what's driving me now. You deserve more than promises. You deserve action." She could barely recognize her own voice, steadier and more confident than she had anticipated. The intensity of the moment surged within her, rekindling the passion that once fueled her commitment to her community. Then, an unexpected round of murmurs filled the space. Some nodded, others continued to hold their doubts, but at that moment, she felt the tiniest shift. Curiosity crept in where skepticism had held court. Mark stepped forward, a confrontation brewing within him. "Are you prepared for the fallout of what you're proposing?" "You're walking into a storm, Sarah." "Every storm can lead to renewed growth if nurtured," she replied, surprising herself with the clarity of her thoughts. "I'm asking you all to challenge me. If you want to see change, I must first understand the storm I'm stepping into. I want my past and present to come together, not clash." His gaze shifted, heavy with weighing the authenticity of her commitment. For a long second, silence ruled the space, and every individual waited for his verdict. "Prove it," he finally said, relenting slightly, yet the challenge remained evident. Sarah felt the tension, a palpable charge binding her to those around her. She had done it, stepped into the storm. The words felt like a door opening, but how she would navigate through it remained an enigma. As discussions flourished and transformed, Sarah sensed her next chapters slipping into focus, yet shadows from her past lingered. They simmered beneath the surface, reminding her that while she sought to prove her worth, her biggest challenge still lurked, reconciling her identity with a community that had every right to doubt her. The moment snapped. She was not just there to build a bridge, she was there to confront the old foundations that had crumbled away. And those walls were not built solely by others but by the decisions she had made. Just as a sense of purpose washed over her, a text message flashed on her phone: "We need to talk. It's about Sarah." The word sent a shiver down her spine. What now? What new confrontation would emerge from the shadows of her past? Sarah went home that night, her mind ablaze with the echoes of the gathering. Each moment replayed like a film: her fears, her confrontations, her unexpected clarity. She had unveiled her willingness to confront the truth, but the weight of her dual existence remained heavy. As she sat at her kitchen table, her fingers traced the outline of the proposal she had crafted for Electrotech, but her heart lingered on the sanctuary of her community. It felt surreal to navigate between these worlds, one filled with potential and the other steeped in complexities. The next morning, her phone buzzed again. It was an invitation to a coffee meeting with Mark. Faced with a mixture of hope and dread, she agreed. This could either be the bridge to reconciliation or another hurdle. As she approached the cafe, memories flooded back. Times when she had shared her dreams of being a leader, while grappling with the fears of judgment from others. Mark arrived, his posture rigid, eyes scrutinizing her every move. She took a deep breath, ready to pour out her heart. "I want to make this work," she began, "to show you all that I can bridge both worlds." "But can you?" He chided gently, a hint of skepticism layered beneath the truth of his concern. "You may think so, but can you really hold both titles, corporate leader and community advocate?" "I have to try," Sarah retorted, the fire she had unearthed at the gathering igniting once more. "I've seen the impact we can create together, and I'm willing to push against the norms." The weight behind her words was palpable. As the conversation rolled on, Mark slowly began to unwind. He articulated what others had hinted, the fear that her corporate moves would leave the community behind. "People need to see that you're aligned with them." That moment of vulnerability launched Sarah into reflection. She vowed to embody her past sacrifices while projecting a vision for the future. "I will. Starting today, I want to set up regular forums where we can discuss both our work at Electrotech and how it can empower the community. I'm ready to listen and take action." Mark leaned back, his accusation now thrown aside, replaced with contemplation. "That's a commitment I can get behind." As they departed the cafe, the sun was rising high, illuminating the potential ahead. Sarah felt a buzz of exhilaration coursing through her. Every doubt that had previously intertwined about the duality of her existence now felt like an opportunity for growth. She giggled softly at the thought, both a corporate powerhouse and a mother fighting for her children's future. Weeks melted into a series of meetings, follow-ups, and strategies. Sarah poured herself into building the program not only aligned with the goals of Electrotech but also palpable in its benefits to the community's children. Each path of her life began to converge into a singular mission, inner strength transforming into action. Then came the day of the presentation before the entire Electrotech board. Sarah stood at the podium, heart steady, driven by a fierce resolve. The numbers and charts spoke for themselves, presenting the business case for the initiative she had developed, strategies designed not only to benefit the company but also deliver measurable growth to the community's educational resources. When the final questions arose, her clarity shone. "Integrating our corporate initiatives with real community engagement isn't just beneficial, it's essential. By investing in education, we're not just supporting others, we're investing in the future of our workforce and the very community that contributes to our success." Applause erupted, but Sarah didn't bask in the accolades just yet. Instead, she thought of the parents eagerly awaiting her return at the next community forum and how this initiative would allow her to fulfill that promise. Recognition came quickly. Within a week, Tom conveyed to her that Electrotech was moving forward with the plan to fund educational initiatives. The validation blanketed her in a sense of accomplishment that felt as exhilarating as it was humbling. That it was within those realms of success that an unexpected email arrived, a letter from the board commending her for her dual approach and advocating for future initiatives. The praise ignited a newfound confidence she hadn't felt before. She was finally viewed as a leader worthy of respect, but most importantly, as Sarah stood in front of the community at the next forum, her familiar circle of concerned parents around her, she delivered the good news. "Today, we take a step together. The futures of our children are pronged not only with potential but also actualized through actionable support. Together, we will thrive." Cheers bounced against the walls as faces lit up in joy, and in that moment, Sarah understood her journey had evolved. Transitioning from anxious mother to a powerful advocate had sparked the transformation. Completing her arc of growth, Sarah accepted the unfolding narrative of her life: the mother, the leader, the community advocate. She leaned into the moment, the crossroads she had traversed, showing that just like those walls forged into windows, her life now embraced both roles, an embodiment of resilience and hope, committed not to one identity but a symphony of her life's passions. Now, it is time for you to join the journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support stories of personal growth. Comment your reactions and theories about how you relate to this transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are in need of inspiration to overcome their own challenges. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. And remember, The only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of acting now. Don't wait even one more second to share.